Hey, greetings everyone. It is GleeCon piping back into your eardrums, into your eye sockets once again. On our last episode of your show, Lore of Warcraft, we took Callie, I believe, and we did another one because I made the mistake of splitting her loyalties between things happening in the Eastern Kingdoms and on Kalimdor. So every couple episodes, it seems that she is running across the continents. I'm going to try to be better about that and spend less time with that. But that's what we did. We ran her back to Stonetown and we played around a little bit. And really, I just blathered on and on about nothing related to the game. So my apologies. I'll try to keep episodes like that to the minimum. We've also been reading the lore of the show of World of Warcraft, and in these books we're on the final Dungeons and Dragons campaign source book. This book is called Dark Factions, and we've read one chapter so far about the different final batch of races, such as Naga and Murloc, that you could be. And now we're going to look at some, it says class options, so I don't know that we're going to actually get classes, but just some options. So stay a while. I can do sit and F in the chat for Kane. Okay, so nothing can stop us now. This is going to include equipment, variant classes, racial iconic classes. We've done some of those in the other books too. Creature classes, and then some feats. It's got a lot, but I think we'll be able to just skim through it. So first, starting with equipment, it looks like some of this is Naga equipment. There's the Great Trident that they can use, a Pan Spear. It says it's a Pandaren weapon. It's a pike-like implement with a flat blade on a bambus reed. Bambus, probably like bamboo. And there's a Shaktani sword, which looks like it's like a Chinese-style sword, a curved, light, sword, and that's it. We just have one page on that. Some of the variant classes, this is just it's just different things. So for instance, you could make an aquatic druid if you wanted to, give you an aquatic animal companion, and it just gives a list of those, maximizing with a dragon turtle. You could be a druid of the nightmare, so like one of the ones you find in Wailing Cavern, I guess, or kind of an evil druid, and it gives you some of these, like they have a power called Child of Nightmares, which gives them nightmare-like spells, or anathema, which makes them repellent to nature. They can take vermin shape. They can warp flesh and mind, and ultimately they have the timeless body, just like night elves used to have. You can be a martial enchanter. One of the previous kind of class spin-offs that we had was enchanter before. So now that Pandaren are into the fray, what would their magic look like? Well, you could be like a martial arts enchanter. There's also a dark inscriber. The inscribers, I think, were sort of like this, because again, this is where in the back of some people's minds, or really in a whole company somewhere, they're producing and testing Wrath of the Lich King. So the inscription has long been something that they've kicked around, and when this book came out, it's knocking on the door. So they're going to come back and make this like an inscriber that's focused on necromantic inscription, as a class rather than a profession. There's an arcane alchemist, which is kind of silly because alchemists are kind of already have that element, but it looks like they can do. Doesn't super potion spectacular is the only thing that looks interesting at the end, where he can put his spells into bombs into potions and throw them like bombs. There is an elementalist, kind of like a geomancer. It says this is like a Twilight's Hammer spec, a variant of a mage. They don't get mage spells. Instead, they get elementalist spell-like abilities or features. It's kind of cool. And there are multiple variants. So it's saying you could potentially incorporate multiple, like maybe you want to be an arcane enchanter elementalist or something. I don't know. All right, so there's a rogue variant called the Contender. Contenders get fewer skills, but so this is like a PvP rogue. They can gain they just give a list of their different proficiencies you could pick. The prowess of the flashing blade. It says their attack bonus progression changes to good. That's something they don't do anymore. all people get basically the same attack bonus scaling. It's just based on your stat. So, like for instance, your attack bonus will never go up for your stave if you're a mage, unless you're increasing your strength. And who would do that? They have disarm, duelist, and get some bonus feats. It sounds cool on paper, but in practice, it's why not just, I guess, make a fighter thief, fighter rogue. Okay, there's the Rune Master variant, the Lone Wolf Rune Master. So Rune Masters, again, if from one of the previous books, they use like it's a weird class. You use magic and they write these runes on their bodies and stuff like that. But this is one, I guess a lot of them are like AoE runes. It's kind of like a variant of a shaman. But these, I think they're eschewing something that other things that would help the party and instead just solely buff themselves. The Scout variant could be a Dungeoneer. What does he get? He no longer has knowledge and instead has dungeon stuff. Why would you just not make that happen? Subterranean sight and can communicate. That's boring. Like, this is boring. Just do this. If that's what you want, just do it. Change the 1 or 2 proficiencies to suit you don't need an entire half a page. Aquatic Shaman, they really want to make you, I guess because of all the Murloc, Naga, all that stuff, they're trying to say, hey, here are the tools if you wanted to go lean heavy and make an aquatic campaign. They would have lightning and frost and a ghost shark instead of a ghost wolf. And the final variant is a warlock variant called the Shadow Mage. So I guess it's if you wanted to really focus on that Shadow Bolt. Umbra Master is one of their powers where they do extra damage with Fel and they can invoke Shadow. So that's more like a spec for a warlock. All right, so I think they said there was about 5 things. We finished 2 of the 5. Now we're going to look at the racial iconic classes. These will be a little bit more in depth. So it's basically saying when you picture this race, or let's say that Blizzard was going to make a video like they did on the first game where they have like the Forsaken Warlock and the Human Mage and the Night Elf Druid. So these, and we've done this in one of the other books too. So what about some of these other new races or these other races? What would their iconic class be? Well, the Goblin would be a Tinker. And I guess we could just, so for the sake of having some reading, let's kind of read the description and see if it's worth it. Goblins are mad inventors who produce useful gadgets despite their chaotic, crazed, and explosively oriented mindsets. They are the ultimate tinkers, competing with gnomes to produce the best devices around. This competition is friendly or deadly, depending on the individuals involved. Sometimes it's both. Goblin tinkers differ from their gnome counterparts. Goblins enjoy instant gratification. They work on an invention until it sort of kind of functions. Then they move on to another one. They get a thrill when they finish something, even if finishing means that it works properly 1 out of 10 times. Goblin tinkers also have a penchant for destructive devices. They like blowing things up and tearing them down. Thus, goblins make rockets, bombs, shredders, flamethrowers, and similar devices. Even their creations that aren't directly related to warfare and flagrant environmental abuse have a tendency to explode terrifically when they malfunction. Early goblin zeppelins, while quite stable, function by using open flames to warm flammable gas, not a combination to inspire confidence in passengers. Though goblin tinkers amuse many, they do so only at a distance. Those nearby eye the tinker with expressions of mixed incredulity and fear. The iconic goblin inventor grins madly through a leather cap and soot-covered goggles. Devices of all sorts are strapped across his body, many of which look broken. He brandishes something to threaten his opponents. Okay, so the alterations that you would get, they have they bring the hurt, which means that they're proficient with firearms and bombs. They have explosive glee, which gives them extra attack and damage rolls when they are bombing, or if he bombs, he gets them. And he has mad inspiration, which gives him this extra, basically crafting his proficiency bonuses for engineering, which, yeah, that's it. He just gets that like once a week. Thought it said ninja mage. That would be cool. But no, a Naga mage. So there are 2, I guess, which is kind of weird because how many iconic classes do the Naga get? The Naga are powerful arcane spellcasters. Night elves invented the art, after all, and the Naga have had 10,000 years to refine it. Indeed, the greatest mortal mage ever to live is the Naga queen Ajara, who still lives. In fact, she may no longer be mortal. Naga women are their race's spellcasters, and over the millennia, they've developed a number of talents and techniques related to their art. Through intense study, they learn to expand their repertoires to include other unrelated spells. Their spells strike with the fury of the sea, whipping and crushing their opponents. Naga Magi received some military training as well. The iconic Naga Mage is called a Siren, and she slithers forward with her brethren, glaives clutched in two of her arms. The other two weave arcane energy, and she protects her allies and decimates her opponents with her spells. I guess that could be a glaive. I've always pronounced it glaive, but maybe it's glaive. She's assured and arrogant, and with good reason. I don't know. I just realized that. My entire life, I could have been pronouncing that word wrong. Should we listen to pronunciation.com? Let's see. That's how I found out the word aegis was not aegis. Pronounce glaive. Oh, it's glaive. I don't want my megaphone. So it sounds like
glaive.
Glaive. I just had that thought. I was like, why would you say that glaive based on the way it's spelled? So if you've heard me say that word throughout the show, we have probably because it's been over 1,000 episodes. I'm just realizing that I'm dumb. It's glaive. Now I've got to retrain decades of mispronunciation. Glaive. Okay, you learned it with me. Okay, she gains a proficiency in a weapon of her choice, probably a glaive, an expanded understanding, which she gets something. It says every level the Naga selects a spell from any spell. Okay, so she can cast kind of outside the box. She gets Ocean's Fury, which gives her caster level checks to fight back against air and water, and I think probably the other. And so, for instance, if she quickened a cyclone, it's easier for her to. And she can use meta magic, so she's better at defending against water and air. And her meta magic feats are easier to cast, maybe a little bit more. And expanded fury that gives her even more spell list. Another iconic, which is stupid, you shouldn't have more than one iconic, but you can also be a priestess of the tides. Some Naga revere their queen Ajara, and their faith in her and in Naga superiority grants them power. It's weird. They wield the freezing cold of the Arctic North. They command the fury of ocean storms. They also draw upon their race's arcane legacy to protect themselves. These potent spellcasters are called priestesses of the tides. Informally, they bear the name Sea Witch. Most priestesses of the tides are female. The occasional male Naga joins their ranks, however. These are vanishingly rare, as most male Naga don't have the intelligence or spirit or wisdom to make spellcasting a viable pursuit. Male Naga who join these ranks are called priests of the tides. I don't think we've ever seen one in the game. The iconic priestess of the tides is a calculating and cunning opponent. She plans her attacks well in advance, and enemies find that other Naga support her. She moves among their ranks, frost shimmering at her arrowheads and thunder sounding in the sky. So she has extra domains of arcana and elemental domains as a priest. She gains some spell-like abilities. We'd have to go to the Alliance Player's Guide to look at some of the spell-like abilities. You would pick it from the spell list, like Cyclone. She has a mana shield, and then it improves. All right, the Pandaren Warrior. We're calling it should be a monk, really. The iconic Pandaren is a monk, and they're calling it War Dancer, but that's just a class that they've invented in one of these books. It's a monk. Maybe they weren't even calling it monk yet. Pandaren are by all accounts graceful and skilled warriors. Their war dancers epitomize the Pandaren art of warfare, and for the war dancers, battle is indeed an art. Their title does not come coincidentally. Their movements are precise and fluid. They appear to dance through a battlefield, their blades flashing silver, blood spraying into the air, and bodies toppling as they move. While war dancers are deadly, they, like all Pandaren, are inherently peaceful. The greatest hope of the war dancer, says the eminent Pandaren traveler and warrior Shimpo Greatpaw, is to not have to use his skills. However, in Azeroth's current age, the war dancer's skills are needed more than ever. War dancers move out to confront demons, undead, and other horrid creatures, their hearts lightened by the thought that through their battles, other creatures will live. Perhaps other creatures will never know battle. The iconic Pandaren war dancer wears a long black tunic with gold buttons and gold trim. He wears a delicate Shaktani sword in one hand, and his other hand is empty. He balances on the balls of his feet, eyes watching, and when the time is right, he is a spinning, leaping weapon of destruction. Pandaren war dancer, they gain some class skills like climbing, swimming, yada yada yada. They can pick weapon and armor proficiencies, light weapons, and those martial weapons, light armor. They have an offhand defense, so that's cool. Basically, they can kind of treat themselves like they have a shield with that free hand. They have a graceful strike, which is like weapon finesse, so they can use their dexterity. They have evasion, uncanny dodge, and then their war dance could kick in, which is a defensive armor class reflex save that they keep. It's kind of like a berserking, but a defensive mode. All right, the Quillbore. Well, there's a Quillbore shaman known as a Thornweaver. While primitive Quillbore have a rich spiritual tradition, their shamans, sometimes called Thornweavers, are valued members of the tribe. Indeed, shaman are often their leaders. Quillbore respect their shaman, and in turn the shaman aid them in war. While Quillbore Thornweavers enjoy using their spells to decimate their enemies, they know that the actual slaying should fall to the tribe's warriors. Thus, Thornweavers support their allies with healing magic and by summoning allies. They have a particular fondness for wild boars. All Quillbore honor the ferocity of boars, and the animal is their race's totem creature. If you think about it, the Quillbore, just fighting them like in the Barrens, they easily could be a playable class. They have warriors, for sure. They have hunters. They obviously have shaman. They have, like, geomancers, so whatever you want to call that. Mages, I would call it. So they could be a mage. Yeah, so right there, that's 4 classes. And you could, I mean, sure, probably no priests and no paladins. Cut those 2 out. I don't know, rogues is up in the air. Thornweavers call upon vengeful spirits of nature, eschewing their peaceful spirits in the gentle side of the Earth Mother that most Tauren revere. The iconic Quillbore Thornweaver strides forward, that's a cool picture, with the tribe members clutching a flail. He plants totems in their midst and summons spirit pigs to aid them, then charges into melee with a fearsome grunt squeal. That's one of these war dancers with their cool sword, using that unarmed defense against a satyr, because we introduced that class in the last chapter. All right, so they get these Quillbore have a bonus feat in shamanism that gives they basically get a fetish spell. They have pack casting, which gives them extra buffs to casting when they're with their allies. They have some spirit spell, which is the summoning, like those boar pigs and stuff. Oh, and look, he's holding a goblin tinker. I don't know if he's fighting him also or holding him as an ally. He has a ghost boar, and the strength of Agamagan is he can channel, which it's like a buff that lets him insta-cast a spell, it looks like, and get some bonuses. All right, so satyrs, if they're leaning toward the arcane side, there would be warlocks called Hellcallers. As demons, satyrs hunger for life and magic, and they delight in cruelty. Many members of the Burning Legion are skilled wielders of fell magic. Furthermore, unlike arcane magic, the use of fell magic corrupts the user's body and soul. By contrast, the chief danger of arcane magic is that using it inevitably leads to the desire to wield greater power that only fell magic can provide. Some satyrs become Hellcallers, arcanists who rather than summon demons manipulate the entropic fire of fell power. The iconic satyr Hellcaller is large and imposing. He stands close to the rogues and warriors who fight at his side, allowing them to benefit from his spells. The green-yellow flames he summons immolate flesh and consume life. So he can summon that entropic fire. He gets extra burn on his entropic fire and other fire powers. He is a fan of fire. So when he summons the fire, instead of manifesting as a fireball, he can make it as a burning hands flame. He can do a fell substitution, so if it's fire damage, he can make it fell fire, and he has entropic puissance. So he's extra good at hitting and gets extra damage. Yeah, so greater chance to hit, and enemies have a less chance to resist his spells. All right, so we finished that chunk now. Now we're going to look at the creature classes. I guess we would look at these classes. So it's going to give us the rundown of how to read the stat block. We don't really particularly need that, but I guess we are going to read some of these creature classes. Why not? Looks like we've got some meaty text here. Okay, so what if you wanted to play as a dragon and level up? While many like to think that they are above the concerns of other races, dragons have interacted with the common races and changed Azeroth's history numerous times. Dragons joined forces with the Kaldorei in the War of the Ancients. The Horde forced dragons to fight for them in the Second War. Currently, dragons keep watch on important sites, ensuring that other creatures do not violate them, and battle against their ancient demonic enemies. Legends say that in times ancient beyond telling, many dragonflights existed, yet 5 flights held dominion over their brethren. The Titans chose these 5 flights to shepherd the budding world. The greatest members of the Pantheon imbued a portion of their power upon each of the flight's leaders. These majestic dragons became known as the Dragon Aspects. They were Alexstrasza the Lifebinder, red; Malygos the Spellweaver, blue; Neltharion the Earthwarder, black; Nosdormu the Timeless, bronze; and Ysera the Dreamer, green. Dragons rarely interact with other races, and when they do, they usually move in disguise. Dragons are naturally magical, and many cast spells to alter their appearance. In this way, they pass unnoticed in Stormwind, Orgrimmar, and other cities, posing as members of the common races. None know how many dragons are concealed in this manner. Dragons are unlikely to interact with the common races, though some varieties are more likely to do so than others. Red dragons are perhaps the most likely. Many hold a vendetta against the Horde, which imprisoned their queen and forced her children to fight on the side of the Horde in the Second War. A band of Alliance heroes rescued the Dragon Queen, so many Reds look favorably on the Alliance. However, despite these possibilities, red dragons have enlisted the aid of other creatures only a handful of times in all of Azeroth's history, so the chances of them doing so again are small. While green dragons share a certain history with the Night Elves, they're unlikely to take an interest in them or anyone else. Green dragons allow druids to visit them in the Emerald Dream, but that's about as far as such a relationship extends. Green dragons also guard entrances to the Emerald Dream in places that are potentially of great danger to Azeroth, such as the Temple of Atel Hakar and the Swamp of Sorrows. The dragons do not allow other creatures to enter such areas. The other dragonflights are less likely to interact peaceably with the common races. The blue dragonflight's numbers are diminished, and most live in isolation in Northrend. The inscrutable bronze dragons maintain the time stream and perform other mysterious tasks and take little interest in other creatures. Well, I feel like we read that whole book series where... Oh, wait, no, that guy was red. Never mind. Krasis. Black dragons, while likely to interact with humans especially, are evil and ambitious beings. In ancient times, their master Neltharion the Earthwarder fell to a mysterious and lasting madness. Neltharion rechristened himself Deathwing, and in the War of the Ancients, he and his flight committed atrocities against the other dragonflights and against all of Azeroth. Since that time, black dragons have been the enemies of the other dragons and all good creatures. I don't know if he christened himself Deathwing. Blacks undoubtedly move in disguise among humans and others seeking to slay and influence. Dragons become adventurers often, though they might not think of themselves as such. They may be wandering scholars, seeking to expand their knowledge of the past or of magic, or they might be treasure hunters, looking to secure magic items or keep their power from those who would use it unwisely. Some travel simply because they enjoy it and because they can. Still, dragons are under ancient and ineffable onuses. Many have tasks of protection, stewardship, or more esoteric positions. They carry out their duties for millennia, leaving little time for exploration. Adventuring dragons usually travel alone, as doing so grants them more freedom. Still, some stories say that an occasional dragon, probably a red one, might join an adventuring group. The possibility is unlikely, but not as much as a green, blue, or bronze dragon joining such a group. They are reclusive creatures, yet even if a dragon were to join an adventuring group, it would travel in disguise. The other party members wouldn't know it was a dragon. The dragon described below is a red dragon whelp. So they're saying, like, even if this would be so unbalancing to your campaign unless you did like a baby. So they're strong, they're technically quadrupeds, they show their base land speed, and yeah, all of it's kind of moot because really what we would need is their polymorph stats. But yes, they are dragons, they have armor class, they have immunity to effects like dragons can. They gain class skills, they have a list of them. It says this is a red dragon whelp, but you could easily just kind of tweak things to do another type if you really wanted. They have blind sense, damage reduction to magic. They have a boundless mind, which is it says that's an ability. I don't remember what that does. I'm guessing it's related to spellcasting. They have a breath weapon, in this case fire, and then they give us a stat block on what happens as you level up. Just leveling up, you can go all the way up to level 13. And that's probably because, I mean, yeah, fine. Yeah, spell-like abilities, yada, 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 claws, wings. Okay, so Flame Walker, I think this would be a little bit less extreme if you put one of these in your campaign, but they're evil. Little is known about Flame Walkers. They are fiery elementals, but their bodies are flesh and blood. Most Flame Walkers dwell in the firelands of the elemental plane, though some live in Azeroth's Blackrock depths. They are unwavering servants of Ragnaros the Fire Lord. They answer to a monarch, but that monarch answers to Ragnaros. Some believe that flame walkers are immortal, but this is not the case. While they can live for 1 or 2 millennia, eventually their fiery bodies burn out and they expire. An adventuring flamewalker is an unknown sight. No flamewalker has ever left Ragnaros' dominion for other pursuits. However, Ragnaros may send flamewalkers out from the Blackrock depths for his own purposes. I like this saying. This has never happened. This doesn't happen. But if you wanted it to happen, here's the stat blocks. These flamewalkers may appear to be adventurers, and such a flamewalker may join forces with an adventuring party if he thinks doing so furthers a task. A flamewalker who leaves the Firelands or the Blackrock depths must remain near a source of heat, such as a volcano, or use magic to maintain its fiery temperature. So this would be a very niche, specific campaign. Though it has never happened, the possibility exists that a flamewalker could forsake Ragnaros and his people and move out into Azeroth for a life of adventure. Such a life is probably short. Flamewalkers have a demonic appearance and an evil reputation, so other races are likely to give them a cold reception. In addition, the outcast's Flamewalker brethren and Ragnaros' other servants, such as Dark Iron Dwarves and Fire Elementals, hunt him with orders to destroy him on sight. Yeah, so this was terrible. This would be like, yes, if you wanted, I mean, hypothetically, sure, could you do this? And then you have to stay near fire, and you'll be hunted on sight, and it'll be a short campaign. So they give the racial tribes fire dependence, fire subtypes, bonuses to strength. They have heat. They like to be warriors. It says how to increase the intellect and skill of creature classes. Just what would you want if you wanted them to be smarter than their average, and how would you pay that price? How could you balance it out? They give some skills. They have damage reduction, obviously, to fire, some spell-like abilities, and heat, and their stat blocks, and they grow as they level up. Okay, similarly, you could be in this campaign where you played as a Nerubian. The Nerubian culture is ancient, proud, complex, and destroyed. Thousands of years ago, so legends say, an evil insectile race clashed with the mighty troll empires. The trolls defeated them, and the beings fled to the far north and to the far south. In time, the two separated colonies diverged and evolved differently, becoming two distinct races, and those in the north became Nerubians. The Nerubians lived in Northrend. They carved a great nation beneath the ice, tunneling into the cold rock. That was Azul Nerub, the Spider Kingdom. They clashed with Northrend's native creatures, particularly the Drakari ice trolls, and claimed many messy and overwhelming victories. They developed into advanced thinkers and maintained great libraries of philosophy, yet they remained cold and evil creatures. After a time, some legends say millennia, the Lich King's frozen throne plummeted to Ice-Crowned Glacier in a blazing display. Its coming shook the ice and presaged the doom of Azul Nerub. The Lich King's forces fought the Nerubians in the War of the Spider, and the Nerubians fell. Many of their people became members of the Scourge, Crypt Fiends, and the more powerful Crypt Lords, including their king, Anubarak. The surviving Nerubians scattered. Now the Nerubians are depleted and embittered people. Most live in Northrend and shun all contact with outsiders. Indeed, they attack intruders on sight, viewing all creatures not of their kind with suspicion. Understandably, they possess a vitriolic hatred of undead, especially Crypt Fiends and Crypt Lords. They realize that they are too weak to overthrow the Lich King and must content themselves with their pathetic guerrilla war. Nerubians tend toward evil. They've always been ruthless and aggressive, and since the fall of the Spider Kingdom, these traits are more pronounced. Still, Nerubians are intelligent, and not all fall into dark ways. They may join a group of adventurers in the hopes of striking against the Lich King, or of gaining the power to do so. Other Nerubians, often young ones, leave their homes because they want no part of their people's hopeless conflict and desire to become more than embittered survivors. Perhaps they want to attain it, at an individual level at least, the heights their people once possessed. The remote possibility exists that a handful of Nerubians are not evil, and could get along with other races better than their brethren. Nerubians make strange traveling companions. Their thoughts are unfathomable, and their minds unknowable. They are not great conversationalists. Nevertheless, anyone who has fought at a Nerubian side is thankful for the opportunity. They're fast, they're smart, they're small, they have dark vision. They're technically an aberration. And as they level up, they have a frozen mind, so they're good about fighting fear and mind control. They can shoot webs. They have claws. They continue to grow and grow as they level up. And this is their stat table up to 8th level. So other than that, you would have to pick like actual PC classes. A sea giant. You could also play in a campaign as a sea giant. I can see no difficulty with that. Sea giants, like Azeroth's other giants, are Titan creations. The Titans tasked them with dredging the seas and watching over them. The Titans disappeared a long time ago, though, and not all or even most sea giants continue this charge. They're individuals and have diverged from their original purpose. Some, however, maintain their duty in current times, untold millennia later. They are fierce protectors of aquatic realms. Sea giants live a long time, 1 to 2,000 years. After this time, their elemental bodies fail, and like all mortals, they perish. Sea giants don't like other races. They aren't evil, but they care nothing for others' lives or for the laws that rule other societies. They interact mostly with other aquatic races such as Makrura, Murlocs, and Naga. They attack these creatures when they violate sea giant territory, which may include some Titan remnant the sea giants guard, but otherwise leave them alone. They interact more and more with the land-dwelling races, but only because those races now impinge on sea giant realms. Unlike mountain giants, sea giants are not allied with any other race. Their tempers and minds are as chaotic as the seas, and other races probably wouldn't enjoy sea giant company. Still, sea giants are intelligent, so a sea giant joining forces or even forming friendships with other creatures is possible. Such an event is more likely to happen when a sea giant is young. A more likely sea giant adventurer is one who travels the oceans alone. She's probably motivated by the same sorts of inspirations that affect other adventurers, desire for riches, glory, or excitement. If she still follows the Titan's ancient command, she might look for Titan ruins or hunt evil sea creatures that are likely to despoil the oceans. She might guard the shores against mortal encroachment. Of course, they're strong, but they're not that smart. They have some swim speed and they walk in the ocean. They can also track by scent. Of course, they're giant, aquatic, amphibious. They like to be a barbarian, whatever is just something that's big and smashes. They have some spell-like abilities. They can pulverize. They also continue to grow, and they can throw rocks. I don't know how well that would work underwater. They give some stat blocks, and then they have some generic stats such as their age, the aging effects, the height and weight, yada, yada, yada. All right, so we're on to the last part of this, which is feats. We'll just kind of look. They give a table of the feats, and then we'll just kind of glance through what they are. So you could take a feat that would let you bite better. Obviously, you probably are not going to be like this elf biting. You probably want to have like a big mouth. You can take cleanse as a feat, which helps you cure poisons. You can have a concussive shot. I like that. You can just you shoot with a ranged weapon and it slows somebody down. You can have better crits as a warrior. You can have an extra holy strike as a feat, an extra war dance. You can be a foe hunter, which you choose either dragon or undead, and you become either a dragon killer or an undead killer. You can have great howl, which buffs up if you have shout feats. You can have heavy armor expertise, improved counterattack, improved dodge, improved inner rage, a magical heritage, which lets you. This is a general feat that lets you cast cantrips of your racial class. So, of course, it would have to be one of these things that actually have racial classes that have cantrips. Pack tactics, that's helpful when you fight as a group. Sabotage magic items, what it sounds like. Shrewd negotiator, steam armor knack, so you get a bonus on crafting and doing things to your steam armor. Weaponry knack, best on crafting weapons, probably tech weapons. Wild expertise makes you do more damage when you are in wild shape form. And that is it. So we've got 2 of the chapters done. I think we have either 1 or 2 more before we get into the cool lore chapters. But for now, what we have is another episode in the pipe, 5x5. Thanks everybody for watching and for listening, and I will see you all next time on Lore of Warcraft.